Dear colleagues, welcome. I'm glad you're here today and interested in couple schema therapy and the inclusion of partners in therapy. My name is Isabel Schurr. I live and practice in Ulm in Germany. Over 10 years ago, I began training in couple schema therapy with Eckhard Roediger. My main reason to train was the observation that when things are going well in individual therapy and development is taking place, a critical point in an existing relationship can be reached, especially if the partner doesn't pull along, meaning they don't support and positively reinforce these developments. Before we get into the details, I would like to introduce my current method called Pecha Kucha. This is a presentation technique in which appropriate images are shown during an oral presentation. There is no text, and the classic method, however, has a fixed format, 20 slides, each displayed only for a few seconds. So everything is quite short and conscious, ideal for an introduction into the topic. So let's get started. In the Schema Therapy for Two, we work on the needs of the couple. If we already have one person in individual therapy, there is the option of involving the partner or inviting them to the diagnostics. Then we can explain the mode model to both, ask the partner for support, or work on communication, or the joint mode circle. Or we can work with both as a couple. How do couples find each other? We all know the saying, birds of a feather flock together. We look for the familiar, the trusted, and the reliable in others. Reciprocity research shows that people align with each other in posture, voice, even walking paths, blood pressure, and hormones. It sounds amazing and almost magical at first, but in reality, it can quickly become boring. That can lead to rigid, entangled relationships. Too much security encourages self-centered behavior. So that's why the saying opposites attract is apt, because at the same time, we also look for the difference in others. Jörg really described in his collusion concept several decades ago how complementarity promotes attraction, meaning we also look for in others what we ourselves lack. This enables growth and maintains the tension and passion in the relationship. Constructive fear of loss can also make us more cooperative. Problems usually arise when the differences are too great. The saying "can't stand each other" fits quite well here, which can be explained by pheromones and differences in the hormonal system. How do couples find each other, and what does this have to do with schema therapy? Jeffrey Young speaks of schema chemistry, meaning partners are unconsciously selected based on familiar childhood models. This involves a kind of fit, like chemical molecules, whose intensity is felt physically and emotionally. Jung recommends an intensity of 6 or 7 to 10 as an optimal chemistry. Also, slightly more attraction difference than similarity. Signs of high schema chemistry are intense eye contact, desire for touch, relaxed atmosphere, conversation flows naturally, lots of laughter, and time flies. The potato salad metaphor can be very helpful to illustrate this. Potato salad is a typical German dish. My family, for example, says I make the best potato salad in the world. We like to eat the dishes we remember them from our past, from our mothers, from home. These are familiar and comfortable feelings which provide security. To give a new preparation method a chance, you need openness, curiosity, interest, flexibility, all functions of the so-called healthy adult mode. A schema is an imprint of previous relationship experiences within us. We unconsciously act according to the pattern of previous relationship experiences when choosing our partners. We are attracted to what we already know. Of course, this also carries the risk of repeating old, even dysfunctional patterns. Why does it ring when you press a doorbell button? The trigger is not the cause. If no person presses the button, it won't ring, of course. A person triggers the doorbell, but the trigger also isn't enough to produce a sound. It only rings if a functioning doorbell system is installed in the house. So schemas can only be triggered if they have been created in the past. The triggers cause an internal activation state, the modes, but they are not the actual cause of the reaction, the schemas. Now it depends on which basic need is most important for each other. And they more attachment oriented, they are blue. Do they both strive for autonomy? They are red. Or is one partner more blue and the other more red? In couple schema therapy, we call it the two-legged model. Everyone understands the highway metaphor. Are you more dynamic and dominant? You're the red partner, meaning you tend to drive on the left lane on the highway. Or you are more cautious and reserved and therefore tend to stay in the right lane. So you're blue. And are there any exceptions? Or we work with a couple to determine who is the top dog in the relationship and who is the underdog. How did this constellation arise? Was it like this from the beginning, or has it changed over the course of the relationship? Where do they desire change, and what are both willing to do to achieve it? What could be the ideal effect of the change, and what would be the worst case scenario? The goal is to bring a little more flexibility, healthy adult mode, into the relationship, so that both poles, red and blue, are brought into greater balance, and depending on the situation, both legs, red and blue, can be targeted by both partners. Specifically, if a couple is sitting in front of us, we can work out who is the cat, the red one, and who is the mouse, the blue one. Helpful questions might be, what does the cat have to do to get the mouse out of its hole? And what does the mouse need to dare to leave its hole? This is a key question. Can the shift in the perspective succeed? Can partners be put in each other's shoes and immersed in each other's world? In many cases, it's particularly helpful to imaginatively travel back to the respective past during a couple session, allowing both partners to develop a deeper understanding of their individual biographies and the hurt needs of the child behind them. These are often very moving therapy sessions in which a sense of connection and affection can emerge that the couple hasn't experienced in a long time or never before in this form. I like the hedgehog metaphor. How close should they move together to feel warm and cozy? And how much distance should they keep so as not to poke each other so that it doesn't get too close? What might a realistic outcome of couples therapy look like? Sometimes the two partners grow closer together, maybe again through therapy, but large trees usually only grow in a sufficient distance from each other. A helpful but also sobering message for some, that all long-term relationships need common ground, but also their own areas. So connection can also exist at a sufficient distance. Therefore, it can also be a very good outcome if people learn to live in a sufficient distance from each other. And sometimes the best way for each individual is to distance themselves further from each other through a living together apart or living apart being together solution. Or we have to talk about separation. What we as therapists should pay particular attention to, talking alone isn't enough. We need to get the couple moving. Therefore, hands off the red poison, even if it's tempting. For the reds, this means putting on the vagus brake in adult mode, holding back, being more cooperative, and being willing to constantly adjust. Self-regulation and, above all, mindfulness exercises can be particularly helpful for this, helping to recognize early when tension is rising and when one should step back internally to establish alternative, more functional behaviors. The blues must learn to become braver and move forward, naming their own needs, expressing their wishes, setting boundaries, and making concrete suggestions. Sometimes this can also be the point where we need to interrupt the couple session and switch into individual sessions in order to tailor the process to the individual and appeal to personal responsibility. And how can the couple keep their relationship moving outside of sessions? Homework and tasks are crucial for this, and we should then continually ask questions, review, and adjust them if necessary in subsequent sessions. Homework accompanies the entire process. Homework is assigned in every session and strengthens the couple's self-responsibility from the very beginning. Pills must be taken to be effective. If homework isn't done, that's an important indicator, and we should discuss the motivation of each partner. Possible tasks for homework include analyzing and interrupting dysfunctional mood cycles, practicing positive feedback at least once a day, looking to each other's eyes, listening their partner's positive qualities, 5 minutes quality time a day, constructive couple conversation 1 or 2 times a week, planning evenings together and longer breaks, looking at old photos together, finding common hobbies and rituals. What we shouldn't forget, the pull toward the old patterns and behaviors is usually very strong. Sustainably changing oneself or the dynamics of a relationship is a mega task, and insight alone isn't enough. It takes time, a lot of willpower, and perseverance. Therefore, it may be advisable to gradually phase out couple therapy after an initial, more intensive phase of weekly to 10-day sessions, and offer stabilizing sessions over a long period. Afterward, the therapist increasingly withdraws from responsibility and may display maybe creative hopelessness. I have given my all, everything is on the table. This is a method to strengthen self-responsibility. Some are disappointed by the realization that much of what they hoped for isn't possible, or that less has been achieved than expected. It may be important to gain a more realistic perspective. The goal can also be to cool down a bit overall, to move from heated to somewhat cooler emotions, maybe, for example, for the children. Acceptance of the other person's individuality and differences can be a key outcome for many couple therapy sessions. You all probably know the saying, love it, change it, or leave it. There are often good reasons why change isn't possible to the extent desired or even necessary. There can be many arguments against a separation, so sometimes the only option is to accept what is. And this is usually the biggest challenge, even for us therapists. And sometimes, at this point, things can still be improved. Now, I have come to the end of my talk, and I'm very glad you're still here. I hope you enjoyed it and that I gave you a deeper insight into working with couples and schema therapy. If I've helped you to want more, then I wish you lots of enjoyment and valuable insights from the following presentations. Bye.